President Tinubu mourns Olubadan. Owolabi Olakunleyin hails him as an accomplished man of peace.
Nigeria reaffirms commitment to nuclear test ban.
And Enugu State unveils Enugu Air as first state-owned airline.
And good morning, Nigeria. Today we shall focus on achieving national cohesion.
So, this morning we will be talking about that something that's on everybody's mind, including Henry and I. Something that everyone thinks about all the time, whether we admit it or not, and we call it national cohesion. I mean, it's the most important thing. It's the big idea that, of course, promotes unity, fairness, freedom, and of course, sustainable peace.
I agree with you, totally, Claire. A society where everyone feels like they belong, no matter where they are from, whatever it is that they believe in. It actually sounds ideal. But in a country like Nigeria, with more than 250 ethnic groups, countless languages and diverse beliefs, it's more like assembling a puzzle with missing pieces.
Absolutely. And of course, it's a very big challenge when you talk about diversity, and of course you talk about the multiplicity, that we have here. Experts are also saying that the solution isn't just about lofty speeches or, waving our national flags. It's much deeper than that. And, it's all about giving every Nigerian, every community, a real seat at the table of sharing resources. Fairly, of course, strengthening institutions and making every Nigerian, no matter your, status, feel seen, not just seen, valued, and most importantly, to be heard.
Concerned persons believe steps such as investing in local governance and infrastructure, promoting cultural exchange and getting citizens more involved in decision making can make a meaningful difference.
Absolutely, but at the heart of it all is the need to tackle those deep-rooted divisions and, of course, build trust from the ground up. Because, as they say, real unity cannot be declared. It has to be built brick by brick, voice by voice.
Are you building?
That's a question we will answer in the course of our conversation. Are we all building? It shouldn't be, am I building? Building is a collective. I mean, a single individual cannot build a house. I mean, you have different, category of, professionals that put together what the structure that you will now call a home. Yeah. So building national unity is a collective assignment, and every individual
must play its part.
Yes, must play. It's our part.
All right, we're kicking things off this morning with a topic that's close to the heart of every Nigerian. That's national unity, and our guests will be sharing practical insights on how we can build lasting cohesion across the country.
So, after that, we'll step away much later to look at, we'll be taking, a closer, heart-to-heart look at a compelling new book, of course, authored by a former presidential spokesperson, Garba Shehu. He was the senior special assistant to former President Muhammadu Buhari.
The book chronicles the leadership journey and legacy of the former president. It's all part of today's Outlook on Good Morning Nigeria. So I expect you to stay with us. I'm Henry John.
Henry, what excites me about the second part of our conversation is the first objective that, Malam Garba Shehu said that book, is set to achieve, to provide, a document for journalists and other mass communicators and all that. So it's a very interesting book that we hope when the time comes we will unveil to you. So I am Claire Adelabu Abdurazak. I welcome you to the program. It's good to be back on set, brand new set, I might say. And of course, we are live on the network service of the NTA. We will, as usual, begin with latest stories from today's newspapers. That'll be much later. But Tessie Omeri is here with us with the highlights of the morning news. Tessie, good morning.
Good morning, Claire. Hello, Ian Ray. And good to have you back, Claire, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, Nigerians, and here is the morning news. President Bola Tinubu has received with deep shock the news of the passing of the Olubadan of Ibadan land, His Imperial Majesty Oba Owolabi Olakulehin, who passed away at the age of 90. The president extends his heartfelt condolences to the royal family, the government and people of Oyo State, as well as the entire Ibadan land, on the loss of a revered traditional ruler, a statesman and a symbol of peace, wisdom and continuity. President Tinubu describes the late monarch as a highly accomplished man of peace, a public servant and a royal father whose life embodies the highest ideals of leadership, learning and service. The president prays for the peaceful repose of the monarch's soul and urges the people of Ibadan to take solace in his life and the values he embodied. The federal government has reiterated Nigeria's commitment to a comprehensive nuclear test ban through collaboration with the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization. Vice President Kashim Shettima stated this when he received the Executive Secretary of the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization, Robert Floyd. Enugu State has witnessed the first landing and inauguration of the state-owned airline Enugu Air at the Akanubiam International Airport. The state governor, Dr. Peter Mba, while inaugurating the airline, described it as an economic enabler driven by excellence to ensure connectivity and job creation. The board and management of the Niger Delta Development Commission (NDDC) revealed their scorecard to journalists and other stakeholders as part of activities to mark 25 years anniversary. The event attracted heads of media organizations from across the country.
We should light up the Niger Delta scheme and also successful like as reduces criminality in our communities. It has also improved commerce in most of our communities.
Together with our management team, have continued to do our work with all sincerity of purpose. We're indeed grateful to Mr. President for finding us worthy to serve on the board of NDDC.
And on legal matters, the Federal High Court Lagos Division has convicted and sentenced 9 Chinese nationals to 1 year imprisonment each for cyber terrorism and internet fraud. The trial judge, Justice Daniel Efe Osiago, gave the order after the defendants pleaded guilty to the charge. The convicts are among the syndicate of 792 alleged cryptocurrency investment and romance fraud suspects arrested on December 19, 2024 in Lagos. They were arraigned on a separate counts bordering on cyber terrorism and internet fraud in February 2025 at the instance of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC). They initially pleaded not guilty to the charge against them. However, at Monday's sitting, they changed their not guilty plea to guilty. In view of their pleas, prosecution counsel Abdul Rashid prayed the court to convict them accordingly. Consequently, Justice Osiago convicted and sentenced each of the defendants to 1 year imprisonment starting from the date of arrest with a fine of 1 million naira. The judge directed the Controller General of Immigration to ensure that the convicts are repatriated to their country of origin within 7 days. The court further ordered that the items seized from them at the time of arrest be forfeited to the federal government. And the Nigerian Air Force, under Operation Hadenkai, launched precision airstrikes on July 6, 2025 against key terrorist strongholds nestled in the Mandara Mountains, located in Borno State. A statement by the Director of Public Relations and Information, Air Commodore Ehimen Ojodame, indicates that the high-profile targets were Jahode and Longpori have long served as fortified enclaves for the Jama'atul al-Sunnah leader Watu, that is faction of Boko Haram. The locations, known for their rocked mountain covered terrain along Nigeria's border with Cameroon, had recently witnessed increased terrorist activity, including reports of a logistic buildup and the presence of senior JAS commanders. In response, Nav Strike aircraft executed a series of well-coordinated air interdictions targeting and destroying high-value terrorist infrastructure, including logistics warehouses, command centers, and defensive shelters, and several terrorists neutralized. And that's the news at this time. Good morning. Nigeria continues shortly with Ian Ray and Claire. Good morning.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, we turn dark into light, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Diversity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthened in unity, we know they carry light. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
A book titled According to the President, Lessons from a Presidential Spokesperson's Experience is to be unveiled in Abuja. Written by former Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Media and Publicity Garba Shehu. The book is an authoritative report on the progress of the 8-year administration to serve as a learning tool for students of journalism and public relations. The event, to be chaired by former Head of State General Yakubu Gowon retired, will take place on Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. Venue, Shehu Musa Eradua Center, Abuja. Time, 10 a.m. Special guest of honor, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria. Special guest, former President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Keynote speaker, former Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa. Chief presenter, former Chief of Staff to President Buhari, Professor Ibrahim Gambari. Book reviewer, Vice Chancellor, Federal University, Kashere, Professor Umar Pate. While foremost industrialists, Alhaji Aliko Dangote and Dahiru Barao Mangal are chief launchers. Attendance is strictly by invitation. Planning Committee announcer.
Maliciously good, maliciously good. Now I can tell you any day that everything tastes better. It's Bama, maliciously
Maliciously good.
Imagine lovely meals you can cook with these ingredients. You spend heavily, but no guarantee of a tasty meal. Not making a right choice of seasoning cube can ruin your meal, money, and confidence. For a tasty meal, do not compromise. Choose Gold.
Use Terra Gold for the rich, consistent taste your loved ones crave for. Good for soups, stews, and jollof. Terra Gold. 1 cube, endless possibilities.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Supermalt has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
Unstoppable.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the cleaner energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
The Nigeria coat of arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000. NIN ní àti káàdì láti lọ gbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀, mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀, mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà ń bẹ. A sì fi yòókù ṣe ọ̀rọ̀ ajé pé ká tó máa rí tó dá. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Net's Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during internment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
All right, welcome back again, and thank you for joining us. Coming up next is newspaper review. Don't go away.
Now time to welcome our newspaper reviewer, Chukwudi Okolie Ugbaja. Good morning to you, sir.
How are you, Era? Good morning.
Very well. And
I
you?
hope your folks are doing well.
Very well.
Claire.
Yes.
Lost and found. Mm-hmm. You asked.
I didn't see missing person adverts.
Those are big keep secret. You asked whether this is my new position. Do you know when it started? You see yourself. Good morning.
Chukwudi, anyway, let's quickly start here. Good morning, Chukwudi. Good to see you.
Let's look at what the papers have. We begin with the leadership this morning. The lead story on the leadership is on Kano Emirates tussle. That's the kicker. My palace gate breached by Bayero supporters, and that's credited to Emir Sanusi. The rider's innocent citizens injured, incident unfortunate, according to government. Police, Emir Bayero, Cape Mom. All right, away from that, above that lead story, we have Senator Natasha cannot resume. That's credited to the Senate lawyer. You want to find out who that is and why. Details in the leadership. Above the masthead, Tinubu Sultan, Emir of Ilorin, others mourn as Olubadan dies at 90. Details on page 7. And of course, right here, we also have ADC members sued to void Mark Aribashola's appointments. Party alleges APC sabotage plot. All right, let's look downwards now. On the front page of the leadership this morning, we have rainstorm kills 4, destroys over 1,000 houses in Kano. On a good one, update on the CBEX scam, EFCC arraigns 2 over alleged investment fraud. Below that, in a red color, 35 abducted women, children rescued in Niger after 1 year. Below that, Enugu Air commences operation and CBN demands action plans from banks to fix capital deficits. And the picture story, very interesting. It says traditional drummers are the residents of the next Olubadan of Ibadan land, Oba Rashidi Ladoja, following the demise of Oba Obolabi Olakulehin in Ibadan on Monday. So that's it from the leadership. Claire.
All right, I think I have, I'm trying to, I have the blueprint, and the blueprint, has some very strong stories indeed on its front page. So I could just quickly take one or two of those. No going back on nuclear test ban in Nigeria, attributed to the Vice President, Shatima. That's a headliner there. And of course, it comes with one or two riders. And then just below the picture story, you'll also find another very strong, interesting story from Blueprint. Savings from fuel subsidy removal helping infrastructure funding. And this is attributed to President Tinubu. The writer there says, FG's fiscal policies transforming economy. Of course, it's also trending just there. And then we have other stories that are trending at the bottom, at the foot of this paper. It says drugs, Nigerians among 34 foreigners executed in Saudi Arabia. This story you can find on page, I think page 13. So I think these are the very strong stories. There are other stories, of course. NAF airstrikes kills several terrorists, destroy logistic base. That's in Borno. And others. So, Chukwudi, let's quickly pick. I think we should look at the Enugu Air, which we are told is the first state-owned, private airline, and the state government described it as a gold standard in government, private partnership.
How are they going to run it? Is it going to have an efficient management in place? Because when you do these things, you're not just doing it for convenience, for people, accessibility and all that, or creating more options for them. The profit interest must always underline all efforts towards business. So, how are they going to manage it? The good news is, we are the first state doing this. Fine. After that, what? Can you sustain it? Mm-hmm. It's a very good piece of information. But I pray that they put things in place to make it work so that other states can even follow.
Okay. And any other point?
Yeah, yes. The Emir Sanusi is saying that his palace gates were breached by Rose supporters. I must express surprise that this matter is going on and on. There's something I like Northerners for. When they make an attempt to change the situation, after some time, they let it be. They'll tell you, maybe that's how Providence wants it. I wanted it to happen in this particular matter. I talked about the northern equanimity, taking the good with the bad. Let's see how things work out. But it seems that matter is still lingering. I pray that they can solve it so that they'll have time to take care of their subjects in that area.
You know, this paper is quoting Mr. President. Of course, people have talked about, you know, the proceeds from the fuel subsidy removal. You know, a lot of people keep asking, where is it? Or where are the, you know, the profit that, you know, we got from that exercise? The president is saying, and he's saying categorically, that it is helping. The proceed from the fuel subsidy removal, it's part of the fund this government is using to fund infrastructure development.
That's a natural expectation. My economics is not very good. But the point is this, Nigeria was grinding to a halt, really. All the money we were getting, almost all of it was going to go into servicing loans and all that. So if the removal did not happen, or the foreign exchange did not, the liberalization was not floated, we would have been really in the woods now. So the president is saying that, which is, we would have been in a situation where it would be a question of, would the money we have even handle recurrent, let alone capital expenditure? So to that extent, that it has helped infrastructure funding, I think is correct. What you now task government with is, are there other things you could have done to even make it a bit better for us? Fighting corruption, blocking leakages and all that. So that's a task.
I think I just leave Mary to do the because you kept quiet.
Oh, well, because I think all the points have been made about the issues that were raised. I wish we had time, and, you know, I can actually read up the story on Senator Natasha cannot resume, you know, after the court verdict. You know, I mean, a lot of people will be interested in that story.
No, that's not the problem. What they need to do is to give an excuse that would not violate the need to implement a court judgment. Simple.
All right, Chukwudi. Thank you.
Many thanks, Chukwudi. I think we'll pause now. And when we come back, we'll get into our first conversation this morning, which is on national cohesion. Stay with us.
I am pleased to announce encouraging news from the National Bureau of Statistics, which released the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for April 2025, only yesterday. According to the report, the headline inflation rate for April stood at 23.71%, This represents a decrease of 0.52% from the 24.23% recorded in March 2025. Similarly, month-on-month inflation dropped by a notable 2.04% from 3.90% in March to 1.86% in April. This, of course, did not just happen by chance. The president is focused and is determined, and his determination and his interventions are clearly paying off. The benefits of reform, though gradual, are real and measurable.
What more do you need?
Guys, food is ready.
progress.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Supermalt has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamut of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space. Some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Anything in front of the camera, you're there. I'm hosting a TV show. I could take your job. Like yeah. Just saying.
You see, that your niqab.
Just saying.
I will finish and you won't stand for you.
By night, I do brand influencing. So if you need a face for your brand.
Wait, which brand are you influencing in the night?
We'll get back to it.
Okay, Powerhouse Family. Just Friends Family. It's time for us to play. Name a place a group of girlfriends might go for a fun night out. Clap! 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 Survey says.
Sarah loves food, but she does not eat much.
I know that feeling. Your stomach says,
no.
Name something a woman might likely need when she's acting moody.
Money.
Money!
Food. Attention. Love making.
You look like you are speaking from experience. Survey says.
At NTA Television College Jos, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer Management.
Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. And to begin our conversation this morning, which is on achieving sustainable national cohesion, let's take a look at this background report put together by our correspondent, Oyeyemi Ajayi.
National cohesion is about unity, equality, freedom, democracy, peace, and the rule of law. It's the foundation of a society where everyone has a fair shot and where shared values, challenges, and opportunities bring people together rather than pull them apart. But in a country as diverse as Nigeria, building and sustaining that sense of unity isn't always straightforward. To truly achieve national cohesion, experts say there is need to foster a strong sense of belonging across all communities, while also making sure the resources and opportunities are distributed fairly and sustainably. That means addressing not just social issues, but economic and environmental ones too. Many believe the solution lies in promoting social inclusion, strengthening institutions, and creating a shared national identity. But it also requires confronting deep rooted ethnic and religious divisions, upholding equal rights, and ensuring that every Nigerian feels seen and heard. Beyond that, experts believe initiatives that help increase citizen participation in governance, ensure free and fair elections, boost local government effectiveness, invest in infrastructure, and encourage cultural exchange can all play vital roles in enhancing national cohesion. So, with all these strategies on the table, can Nigeria truly achieve sustainable national cohesion? Answers to these by guests shortly.
Thank you, Yemi Ajayi, for the background report. And let me quickly introduce the guests right here in the studio. And we have David Akoji, who is the Director, Special Duties and State Operations, National Orientation Agency, NOA. And we are glad to have you join us this morning.
Morning, Claire. Good morning, viewers. Nice to be here.
And also with us for this conversation is Musa Ododo Abdurrahman, and he is founder, chairman, National Policy Dialogue Initiative for Discovery of Nigeria Heritage and Endowment. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Yes, for having me. Thank you.
All right, also part of the conversation, joining us all the way from Cote d'Ivoire via Zoom is Soji Adeniyi. He's the board member, Africa Polling Institute. Many thanks for joining us.
Good to be able to join you. Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us for this conversation. Let me just say that because our reporter, Yemi, said national cohesion is unity. Unity is actually, from my perspective, is actually the outcome of national cohesion. Mm-hmm. That is what we aspire. Mm-hmm. So national cohesion would mean, not just one thing. It would mean it's like a system, different features coming together, to produce, a unified system. So we are aspiring to become a united nation. So we are seeking national cohesion. I don't know, Mr. Koji, I'd like you to explain it for us, yes, because I'm looking at it from the perspective of if Nigeria were to be an object, what would be the national cohesion? If Nigeria were to be a building, what will be the national cohesion? So that we break it down so that people will understand the elements that we're actually looking for.
Mm. You see, you can use the same analogy to say that a house is not a home. Mm. There's a difference between these two. It takes people, a family living in a house to make a home. A house in itself is just a building, but you need to work at creating and establishing a home.
Precisely. And
these processes are different. The process of establishing a building is different from the process of establishing a home. The purpose of establishing a building is because you want a home inside of that building.
Precisely, I agree.
So this is the kind of analogy that we have on the table. Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about national cohesion, people tend to focus a lot at our fault lines. That's not out of place. Indeed, Nigeria, like other nations of the world, have fault lines. We have fault lines across tribes, religion, political persuasion, interests, and so on and so forth. But in our case, I think that sometimes we over-exaggerate the challenge of national cohesion.
Which is?
That may sound new to you. If you dig deep, you understand, beyond the surface, you will find that Nigerians unite around one thing, one interest. And you would ask me, what is that interest? We all want Nigeria to win, no matter what tribe you are, no matter what religion you belong to, no matter what political persuasion you come from. And this is most manifest when Nigeria is in any sporting competition, anywhere around the world. You find that it doesn't matter to us whether the person who's scoring the goal is a Muslim or a Christian. What matters is that he's a Nigerian and he's scoring for Nigeria. So we are united around an interest, in seeing Nigeria win. Question now is, why does that manifest only in sports? How do we build to see that we are united, cohesive around seeing Nigeria win economically, socially, politically, and in all other fields that also matter critically, to our country? It takes working at it. Just as it takes working at building a family, it also takes working to achieve national cohesion, which will lead us to national unity. Your intro was quite apt. It talked about some elements that must be in place, to lead us to the place of national cohesion. Social justice, economic inclusion, national identity, all of these are factors that were mentioned in your intro, and they are indeed germane to building national cohesion.
Are we at that point where it has become imperative for national cohesion?
Absolutely. It is very clear that if we continue to walk along the lines of our fault lines, that we will not make any reasonable progress. If we continue to emphasize the things that divide us, we won't have that common purpose that leads us to win in the Committee of Nations, as even should be locally in our country. Now, very critical to building national cohesion is national identity. As of today, we all identify by our religion, by our tribe, by our community, by small components, that do not make up the whole. And it is not anybody's fault per se. As a nation, it is only now that we are beginning to invest in building a national identity. So that when they say, who are you as a Nigerian? You can list elements. You understand? If they say, who are you as a Christian today? You would be able to describe yourself as a Christian. Who are you as a Muslim? You'll be able to describe yourself by the vital elements that identify a good Muslim. But who are you as a Nigerian? We're just beginning to put that in place. And it is because of the absence of this that the rest of the world have identified us by the worst amongst us, who are fewer than the rest of us that are hardworking and genuine. You travel abroad and they begin to subject you to a different type of check from people from other countries of the world because of the few who go out there and who they see and who do negative
and put a tag on Nigeria.
Things, yes.
Many things.
We're establishing a national identity at the National Orientation Agency, and we're pushing this aggressively. We're hoping that the president will unveil this before the end of this year because he's in the know. We have gone to the villa and we have briefed them on the elements of this national identity. The national identity is being promoted under the National Values Charter. I see elements of it playing in some of the videos even this morning. When I came here and I was watching your before the program started.
I'll sing to you my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah, please go ahead. We have.
All right. Many thanks, David Akoji, for your opening comments. I'd like to get to Mr. Abdulrahman now. Every time you listen to David Akoji or anyone from the NOA, they're always very optimistic that we can change the narrative about Nigeria and of course build this identity that we want. But I want you to speak to us, from your own perspective, what the challenges has been over the years. Because once you're born, it's easy for you to identify with maybe your family, your religion, but not the country. Yeah. Why is there a gap? really, from your own perspective?
Yes, thank you so much. This is the most important conversation we should have now, just like my sister rightly said. You see, what is a country is different from a nation. We're beginning to talk about nationhood now. A nation is not where you live in. A nation is what lives in you. You live in a country. Let me repeat that again. It's very, very, very pertinent to understand that. A nation is not where you live in. A nation is what lives in you. You live in a country bordered by borders, bordered by the same, what we're talking that we call fault line, which is not supposed to be so. So what is a nation? A nation is a covenant. A nation is a spirit. A nation is a revelation. It's more than the level that we're just talking about it. I'm telling you. I've been meditating about this great entity Nigeria for over 30 years of my life. This is my own purpose for life. And I committed to it, and I'm going to share from that dimension what a nation is. You see, great and unified nation do not happen by historical accident. You don't just come by it. They are product of a conscious statecraft. Just like I said, people see it. Within they know it. Some people there. You are a nation. You had been Nigeria before eternity. Since eternity. You are not Nigeria by accident of birth. No. We are Nigeria. We have been called to be Nigerian, and there's a purpose for us to be Nigeria. You see, the divine God calls people into being. God called into nationhood into being since eternity. And there's a purpose, just like you have a purpose-driven life. Each person within that. That is how a nation that there is a purpose for God creating the greatest concentration of blacks on the surface of the earth. Until that purpose is discovered, there cannot be a cohesion.
And I'd like you to tie this purpose with the identity Mr. Kotu
Yes,
talked about. And
yes.
identity is very, very paramount. You must, like you said, you must have the identity of being a Nigerian. But what we see these days is that a lot of people are denouncing their Nigerian identity.
Yes.
Even in all spheres, especially in sports, you see, you go abroad, you find people say, you know, so what must we begin to do to restore that pride? Because you are a policy driver, you know, focusing on heritage. Yeah. We must own the heritage of our identity, of the Nigerianness in us. So what must we begin to do?
Very good. That's a very, very, very pertinent question. You see, time is very, very, I love this discussion because I see you're talking about my life. You see, it's one of the highest wisdom is to understand the knowledge of the time that you live in. You see, the time, Nigeria is at the pinnacle of the most significant evolutionary transition. I'm telling you, we've not been here before. It's like a new beginning. So this discussion is very, very germane. And when a people has reached this pinnacle, there must be a coming together. Coming together that is not political, coming together that is beyond. That is what we call it in our own organization. We said there must be a broad national dialogue, and we target a dialogue with wisdom. And we go and study all civilization, all society that has reached this level. When they reach this kind of there must be a coming together. Because Nigeria is a nation.
Via a national dialogue.
Via a national dialogue.
So what you're calling for, in essence, is now to restore that Nigerianness identity. We must go through the platform of a national dialogue.
There must be a coming together. There's nothing we can do about it. There must be a coming together. And it's not coming together to come and discuss, just like we say, we target our tagline. No, there must be a coming together to discuss this, what you're talking about, because the greatest crisis that can ever happen to a people is identity crisis. There's no greater crisis that it can be. Who are we as a people? And there's a 5 question that is driving this. The coming together is going to be driving. These are things that we've done that even when immediately the national before the DG, it should have been I wrote lot. Even when Mr. President became president,
All
we
right.
quickly wrote to Mr. President that there must be the only thing that he can do for this nation that
Is to have a national dialogue.
Is to have a national dialogue.
Many thanks, Mr. Abdulrahman. Let's get to Adeniyi now, because when you talk about a dialogue, another question that comes to mind is how many people are willing to even, speak up about what their issues are. I mean, some people have just given up, and they just want to do their thing. But let's hear from you, Mr. Adeniyi. As we talk about national cohesion, you've heard from David Akoji and Mr. Abdulrahman, what they think about this. Speak as a Nigerian, from birth till now. I mean, you're an elder statesman, from your looks. What makes you think that certain people just don't want to identify with Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Let me start by speaking from the context of having been involved in the social cohesion measure for Nigeria in the last 6 to 7 years. The first edition of the National Cohesion Survey was carried out in 2019. And in 2021, the then Vice President Yemi Osinbajo launched the 2021 edition of the National Social Cohesion Survey right there in Abuja. And some of the measures that we do take in that report is the measure of trust in the Nigerian system. How do Nigerians view Nigeria as their country or as a nation? How do Nigerians understand the ethnic relationship between themselves and their neighbors? How do people build trust in the public place? How do public institutions fit the need of the people? How do people perceive government policies? All these are measured in the social cohesion study using the standards of the United Nations framework and the World Bank framework for social cohesion measures. Now, if you come back to the main question that you asked to speak as a Nigerian, how do I feel as a Nigerian? You can see the way I'm dressed. I'm in Cote d'Ivoire, and this is how I'm going to walk into my meeting this morning. Proudly Nigerian. But if you take a look around you, you would see that the people in the studio are also so dressed. Proudly Nigerian. That is an indication that as Nigerians, we are proud of one thing, which is our identity and our culture, and we want to carry it with us. No doubt about that. But how do we extend that to your daughter bringing someone from, say, a minority tribe and says, this is the person I want to marry? How is that panning out in the society of today? How does the average man on the street sees a large convoy of government drive past, splitting debt on them and, practically not noticing that that kind of affluence that is being shown is insultive to the ordinary psyche of the Nigerian on the street? How do we feel that our government is responsible for us sufficiently to drive policy changes that might influence our life? Those are the things that brings social cohesion. And I'll quickly tell you one or two that the government has done that reflects the fact that some of this thinking are already taking place. We have already just seen the national tax laws that seeks to address the challenge of overtaxation on Nigerians, especially the poorest of the poor, and how government has come up with a modality that would seem to target those who are high-earning, using data and using evidence to target those that need to pay more tax and those that need to be exempted from tax. So these are all part of things that build social cohesion, which I am sure the government is beginning to see after we've started publishing some of these outcomes of the surveys that we've been doing. As social scientists, we are not only interested in the perception that people have on the street. We are interested in the facts that speaks to the context of those perceptions. For instance, you can see now that the government has gone on to introduce what we call the regional development, organizations like the Northeast Development Commission, the Southeast, the Southwest, and all the other development commissions. This is, again, in response to the fact that Nigerians felt more comfortable regionally and in the consciousness of their ethnic boundaries than even with the bigger picture. So, and the government is responding to that by saying, okay, let's have regional bodies that would also support the development in some of those areas. So it's a chicken and egg situation where we, as scientists, are dishing out the data and the willingness of government to pick those data, especially agencies of government that are responsible for reflecting on the data, on the speeches that are coming from the street. You just said it now. How do we measure the thoughts on the hearts of the average Nigerian on the street? It's through some of this, data that we gather through interviews, through surveys, through real live dialogues with actors in the field. What makes the average person be willing to take harms against the other? What makes children, to drop out of school? Is learning taking place in school? How are we ensuring that our young people are being prepared for leadership positions? All these questions and these conversations need to continuously happen before we can begin to talk about having a nation. We have a country, yes, everyone is proud to say we are Nigerians when the chips are down. But the future of Nigeria is doubtful to a lot of people. And because of that, we need to keep hammering this. And I'm glad that the National Identity Program is coming up from the NOI. I'm glad that the value system is being pitched and preached. And I'm glad that organizations such as, the Policy Institute that is in the studio with you, the National Polling Institute, which I represent, are all working towards this direction. And I'm hopeful that Nigeria, the new Nigeria that we wish to see, is just about to emerge. Let's put all hands on deck.
Adine, thank you, and I'm glad you're with the Institute of the Polling Center there also there in Côte d'Ivoire, and also that you touched on a very important area that touches my heart as well, and that's love and marriage. How can we explore these tools, to support the cause for national cohesion? And also, I'd like you to speak to this aspect of identity, because identity is a very important ingredient in all of this, and it is a trigger, of conflict in most parts of the country as we speak today. So, is there any way, because we're talking about coming together to talk, part of the things that we need to talk, even when the national dialogue is convened, is probably whether the Constitution, reflects the diversity of all of these people, and how can we explore again the issue of gender, the issue of intertribal marriages, and all of the things that you have mentioned to achieve national cohesion.
Thank you very much. I think some of the things that keeps coming up each time we carry out the surveys is the fact that the numbers are indicating that we're almost 50-50 when it comes to gender in Nigeria, for instance. But our policies are not reflective of that number to take advantage of the numbers that are almost equal. I mean, each time that we see appointments being made, 7 times, 8 times you hear men, and then maybe additional 2 is just dropped in so that we can have a gender balance. Gender inclusion, because we've never been able to achieve the balance. But the worst part of it is when it comes to marriages and language. Of course, we've lost that opportunity right from when we took the British English language as our national language, and that has affected the way we have even been able to train our children, because from primary school, instead of them to have access to our national languages, we have, taken the English language as our national language, and that has severely affected a lot of the development that ought to have happened when we were children, because at that point we will have been able to have a whole community engagement if we had been using our national languages. Almost all countries that are developed today speak their national languages from the mother tongue perspective, and we've lost that. So we need to go back and see how we can trace that so that children can begin to learn in local languages. That will have led to intermarriages. That will have led to interconnectivity between tribes, between ethnic groups. We would not have been saying that this person is from here and therefore, you know, you don't feel safe that your daughter should cross the Niger. You don't feel safe that your son should go down to the Niger Delta, for instance, to get a wife and the rest of things like that. So we need to retrace our steps. Some of the errors of our forefathers in the acceptance of development as being English is affecting the way and manner in which we have our own expectations now. Even though we have a national policy that says that our children should be taught in mother tongue of language of immediate environment, we are finding it difficult to implement it because mothers like you and I and fathers and like me want their grandchildren to speak fluent English as an evidence of having been educated, or, you know, not knowing that we needed them to first and foremost speak our national languages and use the languages to learn English language and any other subject matter that they want to learn for growth. So these are all part of national values that we need to revisit if we must build cohesion. Cohesion does not exist in a vacuum. Just like my brother in the studio said, nationhood is a spirit. And to engage with that spirit, sometimes you need to have deeper background that, you know, changes the narrative from the childhood level. Thank you.
All right, many thanks, Mr. Adeniyi. I love the perspective that you have taken this conversation, love, marriage, language, all of that. I agree totally with that. But you see, what comes to my mind at this point is what role governance and leadership plays in achieving national cohesion. Because, I mean, you listen to some people and they think that, the division, in certain, places in the country is as a result of governance and leadership structure in the country. David Akoji, what do you think? Is it just about having a national dialogue or having leadership and governance be well positioned?
Well, we have had quite a number of national dialogues. Even in the present time, government is planning a national dialogue and conference for youths. That process is ongoing even as we speak, because you find that the narrative coming from a large chunk of the youths is of exclusion. They don't feel that they've been given enough platform, you understand, to participate in the process of governing the nation. I agree with you largely. The kind of narrative that we see in political contestation does not help the cause of building national cohesion. And this I have often said. In the heat of politics, many of our politicians become intemperate in the kind of narratives that they put out. And they do this for the purpose of gaining political advantage in terms of sympathy and support from a critical mass of the people from the place where they come from, And this narrative is pervasive whenever we're drawing close to general elections. And it is not helpful for building national cohesion. A lot of times, such narratives are even driven by disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. People begin to promote fault lines alongst religion, alongst tribes, and so on. And then the vulnerable commoner on the street does not realize the fact that in every subgroup, there are further divisions. In Yoruba land, there are people who feel that they are more Yoruba than others. In Igbo land, there are people who feel that they are more Igbo than others. In Hausa land, there are some group of people who feel that they are more Hausa, than others. And so this leads me to agree completely with an elder statesman musician, Bongos Ikwe. And I think you should have him here one of these days also to speak to these issues. He has a perspective that's very, very interesting. I sat with Bongos Ikwe not too long ago, and then he told me, he said, there are only 2 tribes and 2 religions in this world. People are not paying attention to realize that fact. That's why they don't know it. And he described these 2 tribes and 2 religions as good people and bad people. It's just as simple as that. If you go to the Christian religion, there are good Christians, there are bad Christians. If you go to a religion of Islam, there are good Muslims, there are bad Muslims. Now, if you aggregate the values, character, and attitude of good Christians and good Muslims, you will see commonalities. Adherence to the tenets and values of the prophets, and of the progenitors of each of these religions. And they align. If you see the bad people, their behaviors are also similar in both religions. They don't pray as often as the book says they should pray. They cheat, they lie, they rob, they do all the wrong things that are stated in the books. And so Bogosikwe's thesis is that there are 2 tribes and 2 religions. And if we come to that realization, it becomes far easier to build cohesion. And then the objective becomes to, boost and encourage more good people from all sides. And then we will have a nation that benefits all of us. Both religions, which are the major ones practiced in our country, promote love. They promote giving. They promote care for one another. If you have love, you have giving, you have care, as promoted by all our religions. Then some of the things that our guest from Cote d'Ivoire, Doctor, my friend, is talking about, you won't find them. These things that cause tension, social tensions, the inequalities, the injustices, the lies, and all of that wouldn't be there if we have people who promote a critical mass of good people as opposed to bad people.
We will come back to you because NOA has a very big responsibility in aggregating all of what we are talking, and then putting it out there as part of our reorientation, measures. So we will come back to you to see how you are aggregating all of this and putting it out. But let me come back again to the issue of, values. Now, there are social interactions that are considered very critical if you're building national cohesion vis-a-vis, unifying a nation. And one that everybody agree is intertribal and inter-religious marriages. Another is sports. Now, for those of us, who have survived intertribal and interreligious marriages, people see us as, superhuman. But yet, I don't know, we are not exploring it. So how can we explore some of these social interactions, amplify it to bridge the ethnic divide, which is, further tearing us apart rather than gluing us together?
Yeah, thank you. You see, I like to look at deeper dimensions of things. Nothing ever exists except it's created. Nothing. We talk about identity, and that is the very, very first thing we should ask ourselves: who are we as a people? Because by the end of the day, you speak to what we are talking about. Are we? Everybody sees each other just like there's no problem like that. We're not talking about sameness. We're talking about oneness. There's a difference between sameness and oneness. Nature loves diversity, which is the beauty. But how do you harmonize that? How do you create harmony of that diversity is key. So how do you create an identity that transcends all these minor identities, if you like? That is key. This is very, very key.
Do we need to be one or work in harmony? Because I know the Chinese put emphasis on harmony.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Creating harmony of opposites.
Yes.
That is what nature loves to do. If you see beauty in difference. Look, you see us now different because you see beauty in it.
Yeah, okay.
That is nature. You don't need oneness. You don't need sameness. That's what I was saying. You need oneness, which is harmony. How do you create harmony of opposite? That's another wisdom. That is another highest wisdom. How do you create harmony of opposite? Because it's harmony that makes nature go very round. And it's to create, just like I said, is to look inward and go back to who we. That's why I said that's the first question we ask in our own 5 questions that will come up after decades of in this space. Because nation building is not a space of maybe this place is an intellectual nation building. It's not a space of a specialty. You don't see somebody say, he's a specialty nation building. No, it's a space that transcends all those. So it brings the meaning that you must bring everybody together. In fact, the ordinary person, you think he knows what he's talking about. When you talk about what is a nation, that's why I say a nation is a spirit. You don't need to. In fact, by the end of the day, when you create all those things, you don't need to even when people abide by it, they become it. You don't even need to preach it. The first thing you do. So let me land on this.
Yes.
So the simple answer is that we must go back to that one thing that transcend religion, that transcend race, that transcend everything. And that is the breath that is breathed into us.
And that is the Nigerianness. So I want to ask you, before Ian Ray comes in now, what qualifies one to be up without going into the constitutional provisions of what qualifies one? What is that harmony that qualifies every Ian Ray, all of us here to be called Nigerians?
Yeah, that is humanity. You must see ourselves. That's creating. We must. No matter anyhow we're going to do it. We must. There's something I wrote to National Relations for me years back. I said creating a new national consciousness from the cradle. Even now, I said we now realize that scientifically, even after you women knows it, after like I say 3 months or so, even the fetus can hear it. I said now it's creating a new national consciousness from the womb. Put it in all our languages. Say Biraman. Say tap that. Say wait. Although humanity's life. Tap it. Say tap it so that people will become that consciousness. Yes, tap it. So when they tell the mother in their language, in their dialect, although means that humanity is life. Yes, if you come to life, see when I see you, I see me in you. You are me, I am you. Well, we become that. You see, but it's not going to take. It's not going to take a long time. This is what's supposed to pervade.
So what should NOA be doing?
That is what they should be doing. That is what they should be doing.
Mr. Abdurrahman,
going there for past 20 years. And I love what they are doing now. But this new, let me quickly because you are committed. But I've written to it. In short, I've come to your place more than asked your the PA to.
More than how many times?
More than 5 times. In short, the DG that left before this, the Onilu come, he called me. Said when I wrote to him, he said this is what we need. Me, I see that has this election finished now? We need people like you. He said, but they didn't change it. And I wrote to remind your DG that is because you cannot drive it alone.
We have to pause you and let it so that we can
sometimes I wonder they are doing something now anyway, but I wonder that you need critical sometimes you need to be strategic about it. That because trust. People don't trust government.
Malam Abdurrahman, national cohesion is not we can't exhaust it. We can't exhaust it today. So we'll just allow briefly before we round off. We have a second topic. Mr. Koji. So
okay,
please, you have to be
very quickly, brief. Like I said in my first intervention, I said one of the most critical things we need to do is put in place a national identity. And that issue arose in the cross-conversation that you just had with Mr. Ododo. And you asked that critical question, what is that thing? What are those things that a Nigerian should be known by? Cohesion and identity is built by shared values. If you say, who is an American? Around the world, people will tell you attributes with which you can identify an American. If they say, who's a Frenchman? Who's a Briton? All of these people have built values over the years that are used to identify who they are in the Committee of Nations. So in a room where you find a Russian, you find a Chinese, you find an American and all of that, you can identify them not just by their faces, but by what you can expect in your engagement and interaction with them through values.
Many thanks, Mr. Akoji. Because of time, we'll have to leave the conversation at this point. Well, we're hoping that we can have a second leg to this conversation because there's really much more to talk about. But let's get to Mr. Adeniyi's round of the conversation. By the way, when you talked about good and bad earlier, some people would disagree with you because they think that good and bad are subjective terms. It's relative. What may be good to you, maybe bad to someone else.
There are those that are universal.
Anyways, but
that's the ones I'm speaking to.
Let's get to Mr. Adeni as we wrap up. We'd like to hear your final thoughts, about all of this. You're an elder, and it's easy for you to, breathe Nigeria, wear Nigeria, everything. But for a young person, I mean, these days, a lot of people, they've lost touch. But your final words as we round off.
They have not only lost touch. Our biggest challenge is that they do not believe in the Nigeria of any dream. We have failed them because we have promised them that they're the leaders of the future. But unfortunately, we have removed the ladder, we have removed the posts. So it's difficult for them to see a Nigeria that really belongs to them, because here we are with everything almost working against the thought of getting young people to lead the nation into the destination of our dreams. If you ask me what the survey said about that, it is another kettle of fish, because young people genuinely believe that Nigeria is not for them. And that's what you see in the Japa syndrome, that you see in every one of them wanting to go, all out there. If you ask them, do they plan to come back? That's also another question that we have asked, and the answers are not very encouraging. So the thing...
Many thanks, Mr. Adeniyi. Because of time, like I already mentioned, we may have, a second part of this conversation. Thank you very much for joining us all the way from Cote d'Ivoire. Soji Adeniyi, board member, Africa Polling Institute. It was indeed a pleasure to have you. Many thanks for your insights. And of course, Musa Odudu Abdurrahman, founder and chairman, National Policy Dialogue Initiative for Discovery of Nigeria, Heritage and Endowment. Thank you so much. I would love to hear more from you, of course, in the second leg. David Akoji, Director of Special Duties and State Operations, National Orientation Agency, NOA. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Mary.
All right.
All right.
So we'll pause now. We'll take a break. When we come back, we get into our second conversation. We have with us a very important person in the media.
No, don't say it. Let's go for a break.
I am pleased to announce encouraging news from the National Bureau of Statistics, which released the Consumer Price Index, the CPI, for April 2025 only yesterday. According to the report, the headline inflation rate for April stood at 23.71%, This represents a decrease of 0.52% from the 24.23% recorded in March 2025. Similarly, month-on-month inflation dropped by a notable 2.04% from 3.90% in March to 1.86% in April. This, of course, did not just happen by chance. The president is focused and is determined, and his determination and his interventions are clearly paying off. The benefits of reform, though gradual, are real and measurable.
What more do you need?
Guys, food is ready.
Cook to impress.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Supermalt has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
A new edition of TV Guide is out, featuring an impeccable personality with purposeful leadership.
Abba Abubakar Aliu, MD, CEO of Rural Electrification Agency, takes us through the gamuts of activities and mandates of Rural Electrification Agency, as well as its achievements and dreams.
I really want to see that I leave a lasting legacy that can be spoken of in a very long period of time.
Welcome to a world of fun and excitement as we also present an assemblage of professionals in the media space. Some compelling NTA programs, current trends in the fashion world, ICT, sports, entertainment, and lots more.
Meet Professor Charles Anosike, the Director General and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, as he shares his vision in repositioning NIMET as a key player in Nigeria's climate strategy.
Get a copy at the vendor near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Anything in front of the camera, you're there. I'm hosting a TV show. I could take your job. Like yeah. Just say
You see, that your kneecap.
Just
I will finish and you won't stand for you.
By night, I do brand influencing. So if you need a face for your brand.
Wait, which brand are you influencing in the night?
We'll get back to it.
Okay, Powerhouse Family. Just Friends Family. It's time for us to play. Name a place a group of girlfriends might go for a fun night out. Clap! Yep. Survey says.
Sarah loves food, but she does not eat much.
I know that feeling. Your stomach says,
no.
Name something a woman might likely need when she's acting moody.
Money.
Money.
Food. Attention. Love making.
You look like you are speaking from experience. Survey says.
At NTA Television College Jos, you will dive into exhilarating hands that will fuel your passion in education and propel your career to new heights. We don't just teach, we craft the next generation of media leaders. Explore our diverse offering, understanding the personnel matters and issues in the public service, basic development communication, financial reporting under IPSAS, and interpretation of public sector accounting standard IPSAS, audit, internal check and control management, video camera maintenance, new technologies, optics, fiber, IP technologies, automation, storage management, and wireless technology. Challenges and opportunities in the secretarial profession in the digital age. Digital marketing, basic drama, online reporting, understanding the provisions of the revised public service, audio engineering operations and maintenance, camera operations, and intermediate drama. Mark your calendar. The second quarter of 2025 is your launch pad. This is your moment to seize the future. Announcer Management.
All right, many thanks for staying with us. I'm so excited because, the second leg of the conversation has a guest that, I'm so happy, to be within the studio this morning. I'm sure you would enjoy the conversation too. We're turning our attention, of course, to a very unique discussion because it's not every day you get to pull back the curtain on presidential power.
Absolutely, Ray. And with Garuba Shehu's new book, according to the president, of course, it has the other part, lessons learned from the spokesperson. I hope I got that correct, but of course, we will correct that as we go on. We are promised more than just a glossy political highlights. This is an insider's deep dive into 8 years of national leadership.
From security to innovation, foreign policy to social welfare. It's like a backstage pass to the engine room of governance. Plus, it's not just for those knowledgeable in policy matters. Students, journalists, even the curious everyday citizen can find a lot to learn from this.
All right, the launch was was a national moment of reflection. Of course, with the big names, who steered President Buhari's administration, and I think that this book would also stir quite conversation today on Good Morning Nigeria. Yeah, don't you?
I agree, totally, without a doubt, and maybe a few debates too, with, things like this. Now, let's bring in the author. I mean, enough said already. The Senior Special Assistant to Nigeria's former President, Muhammadu Buhari. Many thanks for joining us, the one and the only Garba Shehu.
I don't know.
The fear of Garba Shehu in those days was the beginning.
No, don't go there.
All right. So, I'm just wondering. I wanted to start by asking you to tell us, your inspiration, what inspired, this book. You said it wasn't a bibliography; it was just a guide, for us journalists, practicing journalists. I mean, you are still a journalist, but we are still practicing journalists. And I'm wondering, why did you decide to actually put this book together now that you're out of government? Because we are seeking support. If you had put it out while you were there, probably a lot more people, you would have garnered more support, than what you probably will get, at the launch.
Well, thank you for bringing me back to television. You smiley faces after 2 years, and I'm happy to be here. And to say that, there is a duty to one's profession, journalism, public relations. There is a duty to the nation to write the history that one has gone through. I have written a book that essentially aims to do two things. One is to bring experience that one had garnered over the years of presidential communications. And let me say that, I was in the villa as Special Assistant Media to former Vice President Atiku Abubakar in the second term of President Olusegun Obasanjo. We had a contrasting experience from what we had under Buhari. When we worked with Atiku Abubakar, we were fighting for the survival of our boss and of ourselves, because we also went through so much frequent detentions, trial, in court detention in Kuje prison and all of that.
How do you mean survival of your boss? Survival now? In what context?
In the sense of everything. The survival of his business, survival of his political future, survival of his family, all of which were under attack.
As a spokesperson.
In the open warfare that was declared between the office of the president and the office of the vice president. And we were caught in between. And we went through a lot, not only ourselves, our families. So people should learn that in comparison to when we served President Muhammadu Buhari for 8 years, when we were the ones that were being fought. Because, there's this saying in Hausa that if you eat mangoes, flies will attack you. And so people were all over us. From Nigeria, leading clerics will go to British Parliament, will go to US Congress at their hearings, tell stories. Buhari is a Fulani man. He's a Fulani man, he's a Muslim, he's sponsoring Boko Haram to kill Christians in Nigeria. He's sponsoring Fulanis to attack, all sorts of things. There was nothing that was. So the idea is, as I said, bring knowledge to journalists and people who will come after us, and they will find themselves maybe challenged with similar situations. How did we cope? How did we manage this situation?
And now, talking about this book, I'm yet to read, the content of it, but I'm wondering how you were able to balance personal perspective with objectivity in dealing with such a very sensitive political era.
Well, you had to just do it, balancing personal and objectives that are official. You are left with no option than to do that. And say, when you serve a leader like we did, Muhammadu Buhari, who is inspired by nothing other than the nation. And this is the second half, or the second part of the objective that we set out to achieve. Bring Muhammadu Buhari up close. As it is, people still don't understand this. After 8 years in office, they need to know more. And we had the privilege of having been close to him. So we have a duty to tell, look, to bring an understanding of him. And then, of course, you began to mention some of these elements, the legacy that he left behind. Because people ask questions.
I like us to look at the two perspectives you have given. What you say that this book sets out to achieve, two very important. Let's take the first part first, which is the message you want to push out, the lessons you want practicing journalists and mass communicators to draw from this book. And you said, we get into trouble because we tell stories. We are not the actors. We are just conveying things that have happened. What message or what lesson do you think journalists can take from if they find themselves in this kind of position, considering the ethics of our profession?
Well, journalism can be defined as being, it can be activist, it can also be conveyor belt kind of thing. You are taking communication material from point A, which is source of news, to point B, which is your own audience. What is your problem? Your duty is carrying this as a conveyor belt and taking it to that end. Why do you get caught up? This is the point. And let's also admit there is enormous power in that decision by you as a reporter or editor to tell this story or that story. I read one editor who said, in the dustbin near his chair, but under his desk, there were more stories in that dustbin than in the newspaper that he had published. So what makes you choose, this is the story that should go, this is the story that should not go? It's a lot of power. And how do you use it? And do you use it to persecute people or to promote public causes, good causes in society? And there are experiences that one had tried to tell from personal experience.
Sorry, let me come in. I don't know. Is the role of a journalist practically different from that of a spokesperson, of a presidential spokesperson, a government spokesperson?
Yes and no. Because the journalist in you is helpful when you are a spokesperson, because you had a president like Muhammadu Buhari, who was not a TV show person. He didn't like the exposure. He was not interested. You have to look around and source for stories around him and project what is good about the presidency. But as a spokesperson, the rule book says you must be absolutely loyal to that your boss. I remember reading about the one they call the Master of Spin. Master of Spin, Alistair MacLean. He was a spokesperson of Tony Blair, former UK Prime Minister. He was a veteran of the BBC. And he said, when I was with the BBC, the truth was my boss. When I moved to 10 Downing Street, Tony Blair was my boss. So you make your choices.
So
very interesting.
Being a presidential spokesperson yourself, I mean, during the Buhari administration, what was the biggest communication challenge that you faced during that era, from what you have just said, being a journalist, I mean, you felt the pulse of the people outside, being in the villa with the president, who is your truth, who is your boss? What was the biggest challenge for you?
You see, you have, from the training you receive in journalism, you are supposed to be skeptical of everything that everyone tells you. So when they give you these facts, you must check and cross-check. When you are in government, there is a tendency to let your guard down in the belief that you are streaming in the same course with everyone, that is a common objective. All of you are in the same government, the same political party, and all of that. So you let your guard down, assuming that nobody would abuse your trust. As a journalist, people will seek to abuse your trust, exploit you, use you. But you don't imagine that it can happen when you are working as a spokesperson in a government that is your own government. And it did happen to me. That's what you are asking me. And I'm not going to tell you the specific because I want you to buy the book. But it is there. You will see that somebody gives you information that is utterly false, and you wonder why, and then you are embarrassed there on a global scale, not just locally here. That you have told a story that is not true, and then you wonder, why would this man do this to me? Are we not in the same government? So that's the big challenge that I thought.
I'm just wondering, people, of course, we know, and I'm sorry to use this cliche, the piper, and who pays the piper, and the tune, and who detects the tune. We know that you must, as a government spokesperson, you must pass information, to your audience. I mean, it's your responsibility. It's well cut out. You already know. But what the people, the concern the people raise is how that message is usually put out. The quality of the message put out. And we see today, many spokespeople, and that is why the NIPR is bringing in the rebranding, yes, just to ensure that spokespersons are also, put the people into context when putting out their messages. So is there a nexus there, or it's just you just throw it anyhow? Anyway.
No. I think that, and let me say, I cannot pretend to have been perfect while we were there. We are not perfect. And I'm sure there are mistakes we did, which people would also point at and say, look, you saying this, but this is what you did. But the thing is that the moment you lose one sense, you and your principal, you have been sent there by your people, by the people. You are a messenger as a government. The moment you assume the status or thinking that you are the master, you are not a messenger, then you get into trouble. And so it is, as at the operational level, you as a spokesperson. And then you begin to haughtily respond to it, because the opposition person, the only thing he has against you as a government is that criticism. If you take away, deny him or her, then what else do you want the opposition person to do? To go underground and start bombing institutions or what? So allow them to talk.
Not many of us would have. Okay.
In this book, did you try to address some of the criticisms that administration faced?
No, we didn't try to be. We are not trying to be defensive. Absolutely no. Because as I'm trying to say, inherently we believed that people had the right to criticize us. And we had a few lessons in the book. Press releases that we addressed without getting angry. Because the moment you get angry, you lose the whole debate. So as politely as we can, of course people, not everyone will agree with us. But we had addressed allowed people to criticize us, and how do we take the criticism? So that students, as I said, will also learn from what we do.
You know, in a moment we'll get to the second part of what the book, you know, sets out to achieve. But just this last question, because you were talking about, you know, the comportment of a spokesperson, you know, while performing your roles, and I'm just wondering. If you were fired 6 months as a presidential spokesperson to the VP, what was it? What was it? Some of us may not have, you know, the money to buy this your book, so let's just have an insight. What was it so that we can learn?
I came in at the point when the president and the vice president were fighting below the radar. Of course, eventually it blew out in the open. But then we had a president who never believed that he would be criticized objectively. That whatever criticism was thrown at him must have been generated, must have been orchestrated by someone. So this is, again, taking us back to where we started this conversation. Because you, the journalist, are just a spokesperson. And then, so you are being punished for the sins of your boss. I was the first that was fired in the second term. 6 months into my appointment, one of you from NTA just called and said, "We are going to announce your resignation on network news." I said, "I haven't resigned." They said, "No, but we have a letter from the villa saying you have resigned." I said, "Well, so be it. After all, my appointment was itself announced on TV. So let's go." And that's how it just happened.
Now, this book is going to be launched tomorrow?
Yes, Wednesday tomorrow.
Yes, and you already said one of the objectives is to provide a reading material for students in journalism, researchers, and all of that. This is a giveaway. Just do this. So, what do you think is the one thing that a young journalist would learn from your experience? I mean, the struggles and the successes.
So journalism is a tough profession, and you have to endure. I think this is it, because to have risen from I started from television, not as a cable boy, but as a rookie reporter, rising to the highest level in a media organization. After I left television, I went to print press and general manager in it before we came into Villa. So, and there are risks there that you will face. It's not a bed of roses, as many people think journalism is. Okay, let me just leave it at that.
But would you advise a young journalist to tour your path? I mean, becoming a spokesperson for, you know, one government official or the other, or just stick with journalism, as in, you know, being either in print or broadcast, and not try to go the way of the politicians? I mean, does it make you a politician when you drift that way? Which is better?
Well, I think that it is good to have experiences of both.
Exactly.
It's a good mixture. I've seen the best journalism school in the world, they used to say, is the Missouri University in America. They take you to the field. Like they bring you, and then they keep you in the classroom, and then you teach people for 6 months, and then you go back to the field, continue with your work. One day they'll say, "Claire from NTA, come, teach students, undergraduates, teach graduates," and all over. So it's good to have, and in these days when people are saying it's multimedia that we are practicing, all the skills in communication should be built into one person.
Let's delve quickly into the governance style, because I mean you were very emphatic about the structure of governance under, you know, your former principal. Quickly, just give us, how would you describe, probably in a word or maybe a very short phrase, how would you describe governance under the former president?
Okay, I don't want to talk about what is in the book. I will say this. And I said, if you look at Buhari, go and read about Ronald Reagan, what he did, what he was, and how he governed America. That similarity, and it's accidental, because I don't think Buhari would admire Ronald Reagan or just go after him for that. He governed like a board chairman, and he looked for competent people all around and chose them for the various leadership positions in government. He gave you everything you needed. He gave you the latitude of authority to decide. Buhari wouldn't pick the phone and call Minister of Finance and said, punish this contractor, don't pay him or don't pay her, or give this contract to this or that person. Is there testimonies are there in the books? No minister of Buhari government would tell you Buhari had ever called him for a favor.
Was that a point of strength or weakness? Because I had the privilege of, meeting the former president. My whole life I had wanted that, but I had the privilege of meeting him. And I remember I asked him one question: if he would, now that he was out of office, if he would, use his position to rally support for, a government official. And he said, no, he wouldn't do that. Now, was that leaving his appointees without checks, without, like you said, acting as a board man, was that a point of strength for the former president? Would you consider that?
It's a choice that one will decide to make. We have had leaders who are meddlesome in an everyday sense, and they don't allow you to express yourself. Most people should usually be brought in against the background of the professional preparation that they had for given tasks. For instance, it's awkward, although it happens, that you find a lawyer being appointed as Minister of Justice. We have had some people who have had no business with information running this business, but do they get it right? So that is one. And two, again, as a leader, don't you ever pretend that you are the only patriotic person. Every one of us is a Nigerian, and we swear to oaths, and we are bound by the constitution of the country. It's not only the president that should love this country, every minister should love their country.
Is this book absolute on the positives that you are, that you have put down, you have documented?
It's very authoritative. That's what I can tell you, because it's not hearsay. In terms of Buhari as a person, there was proximity. We were close to him. I will tell you, if he's having an interview, this is the clothes he'll wear. What food did he eat?
I mean, we can imagine the clothes that Baba would wear. We all know. We all know. But
the
did
kind
it
of
also
gift you can approach him with? All these things, we try to explain so that people will have.
And his body language, of course.
Yes. So you can't even approach him with some of these things that people are talking about.
Because we really would love to read that book, and I hope you would leave some copies with us before you go. I do hope so.
By the way, those who would like
this is NTA, like you wrote in your book. This is where you started.
1982.
So, yes, this is where you started. So
the title of the book, by the way, according to the president, Lessons from a Presidential Spokesperson's Experience. So it's important that you know that title, just so you can look for it.
Thank you.
I
stumbled over. All right.
So you can look. But as we round up this conversation, I like something that you have said. You said the opposition, we're supposed to come out with their criticisms. I mean, that's their position. And you were not angry all the time. You responded calmly, most of the time. What would be your advice to spokespersons? We've seen spokespersons who literally tear opposition apart, who use some kind of words, in a bid to respond to opposition. Do you think that's the way to go? What would be your message to them on how to handle criticism?
Okay, let me make a confession that perhaps if you look back at all of the things that I have said in the past, maybe you'll also find me guilty of some of these things you have said. But that is not to say that the right thing should not be said. And as I said a while ago, the opposition has nothing by way of, in any case, the day the opposition says this is a good government, it's a perfect government and is doing so well, they're no longer opposition. That's not how democracy works. So it's pro and con, opposite sides. So the only thing, you already have power, you have authority. So you just have to tolerate them. You can't shut them down, shut them out. Otherwise, if you deny them that, the thing is that you bottle up criticism, that bottle will explode.
I have to ask this question because we just have less than 60 seconds to round up. And I'm just wondering, because you said that the former president would love to be at the doorsteps of the poor people. He wants to be identified by the works they have done. But I want to take you up on the connection with the poor people. Many people will not agree with you with that, especially the fact that we had looked forward to having charts, to engaging with the president, and that never came all through his period, especially with the media. Was that deliberate?
No.
Or part of the governance?
No, it was a personal style. The work he was doing, he wanted it to touch you. Not his words, not propaganda. As I said in another show somewhere else.
But that was a way of connection.
The Igbo man will spend 3 days going to Lagos, from Lagos to go and celebrate Christmas at home. Buhari said, this is not good enough. Let's do the Onitsha Bridge, second Niger Bridge. And today, how many minutes does it take to cross the Niger? That's the kind of thing. The social investment program, the first of its type on the continent.
By the way,
that is knocking on the door of the poor.
All right, there's one thing I would like you to share. I want you to speak to a young Nigerian watching at this time, probably struggling with life, because in your book you talked about how you began being a son of a driver and rising to the top in your profession. Speak to a young Nigerian who is probably struggling at this point. Just give a sense of hope on how they can make it.
See, education is the greatest equalizer in the world. If you learn, you have the opportunity to go to school, take your studies very seriously and learn and read and practice. And in these days when the skills are emphasized, take to skill learning. But the point is that if you have education, you are empowered. In fact, society has no obligation to spoon feed you. You can be on your own. And as a journalist, what did it take? Self-confidence that education gives you. Because one day somebody will come and say, this story, as editor, if you write this story, don't put this story out.
All right,
you do it, I will fire you. You can tell the owner, fire me, you know that you'll get the next job because your education.
Okay, yeah, but the book will be launched tomorrow. And by the way, we forgot to ask, how is the former president doing?
We have been reading a lot of nasty things on the web. In the last 24 hours, he's in a recovery mode. We have a local saying in our area, if somebody, people were even saying he has passed on. If they say you have died, they are increasing your lifespan. And by God's grace, Buhari will continue.
We've seen that happen many times in the past.
Exactly. There is nothing we hadn't seen in the past. So it's back all over again. But I assure you that he's unwell, all right, but he's in a recovery mode.
Many thanks.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to continue to talk with you.
We wish him well, there's no time. And we wish him, quick and speedy recovery. And I don't want to say unfortunately, but this is the divine. It's a divine. It's a heavenly divine that he will not be physically present at your lunch. We wish you also a successful lunch. All right. Yeah, Ray.
All right, so that's our package this Tuesday. Many thanks for being a part of it. Of course, we must thank Garba Shehu for being our guest.
Thank you.
It was indeed an honor, and we wish you all the very
Thank
best.
you.
Are you going to give us our copies? No, you have to say it. You have to.
You
have
asked
to
me
say.
for a copy yesterday. I have one for you. If you like, go and put it in the NTA library.
What about me?
I will give you another. I will send a copy to you.
Okay, so we can close since I'm
close.
getting a copy. So that's Good Morning Nigeria this Tuesday. Thank you for watching. Live a lot on the NTA. I'm Ian Ray John.
And I'm Claire Adelabu Abdul Razak. I see you tomorrow. Bye bye.